Regular council meeting for January 16th together here. I see that all of our council members are here. Councillor Hammond's just coming back. And I'd like to do the land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that this land is the traditional territory of the Three Fires Confederacy of the First Nations, comprised of the Ojibwe, the Ottawa, and the Potawatomi peoples, and of the Huron-Wyandot peoples. We value the significant historical and contemporary contributions of local and regional First Nations and of all the original peoples of Turtle Island who have been living and working on the land from time immemorial. Please stand for your national anthem.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command.
Car ton bras s'est porté l'épée, il s'est porté la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée des plus brillants exploits.
God keep our land glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you for joining us tonight. Just a reminder, if you have a cell phone, just turn it on silent to not disrupt the meeting. We have a closed meeting report. We will go to our clerk, Ms. Brown.
Madam Mayor, I can report that council met in closed session on January 9th at 4 p.m. For the purpose of education and training as permitted to do so by Section 239 of the Municipal Act. Council participated in new council training for the municipality regarding municipal finance, and that's the extent of my closed meeting report.
Any declarations of conflicts of interest from members of council? Seeing none, thank you. Looking for the adoption of the published agenda, that the published agenda be adopted tonight. But first, we have a few amendments that we're seeking council support for, that we move up 17.1.1, the notice of motion from Councillor Verbeek to new business, because it is minor and urgent and timely with Roma coming up. And the second, I would like to go to our CEO, Doug Sweet, for bylaw 2211.
Thank you, Mayor Bondi. Administration would like to recommend to council is in front of you tonight for a third reading. We're asking that you defer that. There's been some public feedback, some comments from council, and that's one item we'd like to have our new director review when they're in. So we're just asking consideration to just defer that bylaw for third reading.
CAO Suite. So we have those two amended, looking for a mover and a seconder of the amended agenda tonight. Deputy Mayor Shepley, Councillor Mady, any questions? Seeing none, all in favor of that? That is carried unanimously. Adoption of the minutes from the regular council meeting of December 19th. Looking for a mover that the minutes of the regular council meeting held on December 19th be adopted as circulated. Looking for a mover on that. Councillor McGuire-Blaze, seconded by Councillor Guerin. Any questions on that? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried unanimously. We have no public presentations, no unfinished business, so we are going to go to reports from administration. Legal and Legislative Services 2023-01, read the municipal and school board election accessibility report. Looking for a mover that Legal and Legislative Services Report 2022-01, entitled 2022 Municipal School Board Election Accessibility Report, be prepared by Shelley Brown, acting clerk, dated January 16th, be received for information. Deputy Mayor Shepley, Councillor Verbeek, and we'll go to Ms. Brown if you have any comments. I did have one question, because I think it relates to the accessibility of our election, is how proxy votes went this election, and if we had any success with our new policies and procedures around proxy voting.
Through you, Madam Mayor. So for this last election, we issued, well, actually, let me step back. We created a registry for all of our proxies, and on that registration, we had 15, sorry, my apologies, 15. Of those 15, 11 were certified, and of the 11, 10 people voted. So there was 2 that came very much near the end, and we throughout the process, what would happen is the person that was making the appointment would get a hold of us. We would give them the number, we'd send that off, and then that person that's going to be voting on their behalf would come in. So that second part never happened, and that's why we kind of have that little bit of a gap. The other thing that I can share with you, I think you had kind of questioned was by ward. Ward 1 had 4 proxies, Ward 2 had 2, Ward 3 had 6, and Ward 4 had 3. The other thing I wanted to note too that we had been looking at in some of the feedback that we had gotten on the report was some concerns regarding the location in Ward 3 and some of the wait times. So that is something that we're mindful of and that we will take a look at going forward.
That information. So it's good to see that we did have some successful proxy votes, even with the more checks and balances. Any questions from members of council on the report? Councillor Allard?
Sorry, through the mayor, the Ward 3 problem, there was a lot of problem with the internet going down. So that.
Madam Mayor, so in the if you're referring to the morning session of that, that was a province-wide issue with the provider. That was everybody. So it wasn't just us, which is why we had to get, it's why we always have our backup plan. We always have our, plan B, right? We went to that paper, the manual, kind of the old school kind of checklist. So if you're referring to that, that's what that is. Our IT team we have little hotspots that we created to help with all of that. And again, we'll take all of this into consideration for the next election.
Councillor Allard? Okay, Deputy Mayor Shepley?
In lieu of many complaints that a lot of us get here about lines and things like that, for the next election, will we have an opportunity to maybe look at internet voting? I know it's popular in Tecumseh, they've done it several times. I think it would really help us in the next election if we were to look at that.
Mayor Bondi? So yes, absolutely. That you'll have an opportunity. We'll bring a report to council with recommendations that you'll be able to consider all of our options. And yes, a hybrid would be 2 thumbs up.
Madam Mayor, one of the feedbacks I got in Ward 3 was an accessibility issue on the ramp going to our facility. I don't know if that's ever been brought up before or not, but there has been quite a few people that told me that they couldn't navigate that ramp on their own in their own wheelchairs, and that people that were helping were having trouble pushing them even on that day. So I wonder if that's something that town's aware of, and if there's any plans on reviewing that.
Ms. Brown?
We did, through you, Madam Mayor, we did receive similar feedback, and I would defer to Director Morris regarding the construction of that ramp, because it is my understanding that it is fully compliant.
Ms. Mayor, so the ramps were built in compliance with the accessibility standards. So it is something that we are aware of. We did check, and it was built to those standards.
CAO Suite, then Councillor Guerin.
Mayor Bondi, just to add on to that, although it meets codes, we did hear the public feedback. So as Deputy Clerk Brown mentioned, although it met code, we're not too stubborn to say we're still going to use it. We're going to be looking at different alternatives to make sure it's totally accessible with no complaints in the future.
Thanks, CAO Suite. Councillor Guerin?
Thank you, through the mayor. Yeah, just to clarify Deputy Mayor Shepley's point on the way we voted last time. It did come to council last term, all the options, be it mail, be it telephone, whatever, and the council, they landed on the way we did it.
From council members? Okay, seeing none, all in favor of receiving this report? That's carried unanimously. 10.2, Legal and Legislative Services 2023-02, results for request for proposal for our Integrity Commissioner Services, that Legal and Legislative Services report be received and that council award the request for proposal for Integrity Commissioner Services to Bruce P. Elman for a term commencing January 1st, continuing to December 31st, 2023, subject to an option to renew. Looking for a mover? Councillor McGuire Blaze, Councillor Verbeek. Any questions to this report? Councillor Garren.
Through the mayor, did we get any other interest from other parties?
Madam Mayor, yes, we did. There were 3 submissions.
For members of council? Okay, seeing none, all in favor? That's carried unanimously. Operations 2208, South Talbot Road Community Safety Zone. Recommended action that the operations report 2022-08 be received. Looking for a mover on this report. Deputy Mayor Shepley, seconded by Councillor Mady. Any comments from council on this or questions to our administration? Councillor McGuire Blaze.
Thank you through the chair. I'm in agreement with the report from administration that this might be a little bit premature. We just closed the intersection for Highway 3 in Victoria here, and we're not yet done all of the roads that are going to complete the expansion of Highway 3, such as the Hanlon extension, which will help alleviate some of the traffic that's going down that road. I do feel bad for the residents who live there. I understand they're getting much more traffic, obviously, than when it was a cul-de-sac. But I drove up and down the street several times since receiving a complaint from one of the residents. To me, it seems like the median speed is about 60 kilometers an hour, which is about 10 over the speed limit. And I did talk to a couple of people who live on the street. They agree with me. I don't think that making it a community safe zone will fix the problem. I mean, you can do that, but we still need the police to enforce the community safe zone. And unfortunately, I don't believe that we have the police capacity to enforce a community safe zone in this area. So I'm going to be agreeing with council or with administration on this and waiting and seeing what happens in the future.
Any further comments from any members of council? I will say that I do believe we need to look at the intersection by McDonald's, Tim Hortons, and the new subdivision. I think that is an accident waiting for to happen. I think something be done there. And I do feel sympathetic for the residents on the South Talbot. It almost feels like a highway because it's so open and it's so big. It feels like you could speed there. So I really look forward to traffic calming measures. Councillor Verbeek and I are on the police service board. I mean, we can bring it up again. Perhaps we can do something in the spring with the black cat boxes, start to collect some data, because I do think the concerns are really real there. Okay, with no further comments, all in favor of receiving the report? That's carried unanimously. Operations 2022-09, Guesto Side Road speeding complaints. Recommended actions that the operation report be received. The council direct administration to implement a speed radar signage program as outlined in this report, and that council approve the expenditure of approximately $8,000 for the purchase of 2 speed signs. Looking for a motion to support this or get this on the Councillor Verbeek, seconded by Councillor Allard. And I will invite Kevin, our Director Gerard, to speak to this motion.
Through the mayor, thank you. So in the fall of 2022, administration completed a speed analysis on Guesto Side Road from County Road 12 to about 1 kilometer to the southeast. The traffic study was conducted in accordance with the national TAC guidelines. It was identified that the average daily traffic on that road was approximately 58 cars per day. As identified in the report, the prevailing speed is the speed at which the vehicles travel at or below, which is also called the 85th percentile. Essentially what that is that it's a gauge for the municipality or the person conducting the study to determine what the safety factors of the road and what the driver's perception of safety and speed should be on that road. Essentially, speed limits that are set above or below that 85th percentile could potentially create unsafe conditions due to speed differential, as some drivers adhere strictly to the law while others drive the natural induced speed. Excuse me. Through the completion of the traffic study, the prevailing speed on this road was determined to be 69 kilometers per hour, which is significantly above the 50 kilometer an hour posted speed limit. Therefore, as recommended in the report, the town recommends that when the road be reconstructed or rehabilitated in the future, that the town take measures to change the design of the road to fit the posted speed limit of 50 kilometers an hour. In the meantime, the best measure to improve issues for speeding on road segments is through enforcement and education. For that reason, it's recommended that council approve the expenditure of $8,000 to initiate a temporary speed radar signage program, which would be the purchase of 2 speed radar signs, temporary signs that flash a driver's speed in real time to educate drivers on how fast they're traveling down that road and to give them an opportunity to identify whether or not they're speeding. Those signs would be placed temporarily to educate those drivers in that area and be rotated through the town as needed. I'll pass it back to Mayor Bondi for council's deliberation.
I particularly like the fact that we can move them around. Councillor Verbeek and then Councillor Allard.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. Obviously, I'm really grateful for this. Director Gerard heard from me a number of times on this road, as did the OPP when I was constantly calling them, and they definitely affirmed that every single time they sent an officer out there, they were issuing tons of tickets because the behavior was happening. So I'm really glad that we're addressing it. This is also a little bit of affirmation for the past council that, you know, purchasing those black cats is already paying off. And I'm anxious to see if this helps modify the driver's behavior. I'm not only hopeful that if it does work, we move them around, that we find money for more, because our last 4 years, we were looking for other ways to address and modify the speeding in the community. And this road in particular, I had residents reporting homeowners standing at the road with basketballs and beaning known speeders because of, you know, how unsafe they felt on that road. So I'm really glad we're going to get on it. And thank you again, Director Gerard.
Councillor Allard.
Don't have any real questions. I just want to say that this is a good idea. We should be able to use them around the community. Lots of other spots that are hot spots.
We'll go Deputy Mayor Shepley, Councillor.
Good Mayor. I grew up in that area, and I don't think the speeds changed. We knew it was 50 all along in that where the village comes up on Gusto Side Road. I don't think the signs are going to make a difference. I'm glad we're going to get them and we can try using them around, but I really don't think it's going to make a difference. I think what's going to make a difference is police presence in that area. That's the only thing that's going to correct it. Thanks.
Take it through the mayor. Yeah, so to Mr. Gerard, and to Deputy Mayor's point, how do we know that they are working? We're going to put these signs up. They're going to be there for an extended period of time. Will we be doing another study while they're up to see if it's worked, and then we decide on moving them, or how does that work?
What we intend to do as part of our traffic program is to, especially where in areas that we're identifying as a potential issue, is install one of the black hat devices to obtain some objective data without the sign. Then we can identify if there is a speeding concern, that we can place those temporary radar signs in that area to try and bring some education to that segment of road. The intent is to leave the black hat device up at the same time to try and continue to collect that data to see if we have a change in education. It will also afford us the opportunity to determine how long those signs should be up for. As you know, sometimes you put those signs up, people tend to stop paying attention to the sign if it stays there for too long. So it'll afford us the opportunity to determine when the best time to move it is. If it's 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 2 months, we're not sure at this time. And it'll basically be derived from driver behavior. So we do intend to operate both systems at the exact same time to try and determine how effective the program is as well.
Okay, Counselor Meady?
Madam Mayor, I've got a couple. How many of the Black Cat devices does the town own right now?
Through the mayor, we owned one before the 2022 budget, and council approved an additional 2 units in the budget. The pricing we received was actually pretty good on the Black Hat devices, so we were able to actually fund the purchase of these signs through that same capital budget if council approves the recommendation in front of you.
Thank you, and to you, Madam Mayor. How do we go about getting the Black Cat devices deployed? If one of the councilors wanted a road studied, what's our procedure for having those Black Hat devices deployed on either roads?
Through the mayor, just a simple request to infrastructure services would suffice. We've been using our City Works program to identify areas that are generating complaints for speeding. That's how we determine when the Black Cats get rotated. So they're in a cycle currently to try and identify areas that have speeding concerns. If there is a specific request or a counselor is receiving multiple complaints in a certain area, I would just bring that to our attention and we can look at scheduling to put the device in that area.
And then Counselor McGuire-Blaze.
To Mayor Bondi, just to add on to Director Gerard, I also meet on a regular basis with the OPP. And if they bring things forward, we'll implement them at that time, or we'll ask them if you have any concerns. But as Director Gerard, it's through a kind of a report or problem or the non-emergency with the OPP. Right now, that's kind of where we're using the metrics on where to put them.
Blaze?
Thank you, through the mayor. So we're looking at about 20 cars a day that's speeding. And Ms. Verbeek has said that we've had the OPP sit there multiple times and collect multiple tickets. Do we have any data that shows us, like, there's the speed trailers that the OPP have? Do we know if those are effective? I just feel like after 2 days of these yellow signs being up, people are just going to realize, okay, there's no enforcement here. It's just a sign, and they're going to blow through it anyways, like they have been for the past X amount of years that section of road has been 50. I'm just wondering what our actual expectation is. It seems like we're going to put this in place, and really in reality, is it going to help? I have really big doubts.
The one main difference between the mountable signs that we're proposing as part of this report and the speed radar trailer is that the speed radar trailer isn't easily installed in every location, especially in a rural setting. It's actually a significant operation. It's a fairly decent sized trailer. It needs to be set on level ground. It needs to be, so I mean, traveling across ditches, things like that aren't really feasible. So sometimes those signs are actually well off the side of the road. They can't be placed on the shoulder because they could create a hazard for drivers. So whereas these signs can be placed in the normal placement of a sign in accordance with regulations for setting up signs. So there is a bit of a difference here in terms of the trailers and the pole mounted sign. However, they serve the same purpose to educate the public on the speed that they're traveling, right? So I do agree with you that they do serve the exact same purpose, but the implementation of them is slightly different.
Thank you, through the chair. And through my second question is the cost of these, that's coming out of the 2022 budget for the black boxes, is that, or where are we proposing to take the money from?
We have a 2022 capital project to purchase the Black Hat devices. There is enough money in that account to purchase these speed radar signs.
Further questions? Okay, Deputy Mayor Shepley.
Sure, thought about maybe getting a couple, if we've got the extra money, getting maybe a couple more and using it on the South Talbot even like that. I mean, if it's worth a shot. I mean, it will bring awareness to people. I don't think it will do the job on Guesto Side Road, because I think everybody there knows this. But maybe on South Talbot, I see a use for it, so I would support it either way.
Director Gerard?
Mayor, we only have enough money to purchase 2 of the signs, so one for each direction of travel. But just South Talbot Road could certainly be put into the queue for these signs if council does approve the purchase of them.
That idea. Okay. Counselor Allard, then Counselor Garrett.
Is there any possibility of getting these signs with the black cat kind of aspect to it, that it reads and memorizes how fast cars are going?
Through you, the easy answer is yes. So there are some signs out there that have them implemented internally into it. The way that they work in the industry currently is that there's a online cloud platform that you have to subscribe to in order to collect that data in real time. So I would just recommend, we do have the flexibility with the 3 black cats. I would just recommend to strategically use those black cats with those signs. For now, again, we don't really know what the results of the program will be. So I would just caution as to investing too much money, or we want to make sure that this program can take off, and we can always report back to council at a later date and maybe make recommendations that may improve that program. Or if it's not working, we could discontinue it. So it is something for council to consider in the future, but I would just caution as to investing too much money at this time. Let's see how the program works, and this would be a very good starting point to that.
Gerard, it's well said. Counselor Garrett?
Thank you, through the mayor. I think the whole key to this is the black cat, though, because the trailers that are put up and even these speed signs, yeah, the people drive, they see them, and it is tracking their driver habits. But when we put the black cats up with or without the signs, that's the key, because people don't even know they're there. So we've already done the study, put the signs up. Now we have the black cats working in association with it. So we'll be able to see if the signs are actually working or not.
Your worship, I know that there was a time we used to use ghost cars, just set them up, and those work for a while. There's for sure, if we could spare a car.
Thank you, Counselor Hammond. Even the fake one, the old one on Heritage Village got me every time. But they should, I'm telling you, they should put that back there on our, yeah. Okay. I think we had a really good discussion about this, and we know where we can elaborate in the future. So all in favor of this motion? Okay, that's carried unanimously. Finance and Business Services 2023-12 debt management policy, looking for a motion that Finance and Business Services report be received and that council adopt the finance policy entitled debt management policy, and that council direct administration to prepare a bylaw to repeal bylaw 1908, being a bylaw to authorize the Essex Shoreline Assistance Loan Program being effective August 31st, 2023. Looking for a mover and a seconder on this. Councillor Verbeek and Councillor Mady. And the floor is yours, Director Drusevich.
Thank you, through the chair. So just a little bit of background on this policy and how it came to fruition. Specifically mentioned in the town's last strategic plan was the goal of managing appropriate debt levels. So administration has been working on this policy for a little over a year now, and it's to ensure that both council and administration has guidelines to follow when taking debt. There are 4 overarching goals within this policy. One is to ensure adherence to regulations. One is to define the uses of debt and how it can be obtained. One is to promote fiscally responsible financial management. And the last is to minimize the costs of long-term financing. Within the policy, you'll see a benchmark of 15% of debt servicing costs to own source revenues has been identified and recommended. So administration gathered other similar size municipalities' debt policies. Most of those used 15% as the threshold. The reason being that it allows a 10% excess up to what the Ministry of Affairs will allow. So they allow 25%. So if something unexpected came up, you would have a 10% buffer per se. So also included within this report is the recommendation to discontinue the shoreline loan program. Debt taken from this program does impact town's debt levels, so they are reflected in the indicators that are issued by the ministry each year. Recently, the town has approved capital projects with a significant amount of debt funding. And so through the creation of this debt financing policy and debt management policy, administration investigated ways that we could keep the town's financial indicators at minimal balances. Shoreline loan balances do get reflected in these, as well as the town's annual repayment limit. At the onset, we did have good uptake. We did disperse several loans through this program. And we do believe that the bylaw served the problem of the day from 2020 into 2021 being shoreline erosion along the town's shorelines. Recently, we've had very minimal resident uptake, and when we have had interest, it's been for very substantial and significant loan amounts to just individuals. So for this reason, as well as the predictability, right? That was really the main reason for the discontinuation of it. It's very hard to predict when a shoreline loan will be dispersed. So for this reason, we are recommending with a significant notice period that the program be discontinued. That's in a nutshell. So at this point, I'll open the floor to any questions.
I think it's a great idea. It was a great program. And I think all of our programs, like many of them, like the CIPs, they have their time and then we cannot afford to keep them forever. So any comments from council members? Seeing none, all in favor of this debt? Just in favor? Yeah. Okay. All in favor? Okay. Carried unanimously. Okay. I wasn't sure. Okay. Planning 2301 draft plan subdivision approval for Sunset Gardens Phase 2. Looking for a mover that planning services report be received and that council authorize any over budget amount for the development charges be funded through the landfill reserve, repaid at a period no longer than 5 years from the date of the building permit issuance, and that council request the manager of planning services for the County of Essex to give draft plan subdivision approval to Castle Gate Towers, Inc. for the development of Phase 2, subject to the following conditions: that the applicant enters into a subdivision agreement with the municipality, that the applicant be required to provide an easement or land conveyance over blocks 61 to 63, the temporary cul-de-sac, in favor of the municipality and to the satisfaction of the municipality. And 3, that the applicant be required to provide the municipality cash in lieu of parkland equal to the appraised value of the standard parkland conveyance, 5% at the time of plan of subdivision approval. 4, that the applicant be required to register restrictive conveyance over lots 46 to 50 to the satisfactory of the municipality and the Essex Region Conservation Authority. And 5, that such conditions requested by the manager of planning services for the County of Essex as a condition of the draft plan of subdivision approval. Looking for a mover for that. Deputy Mayor Shepley, seconded by Councillor Mady. Any questions? Deputy Mayor Shepley.
Mayor, just a quick question on this one part that's a bit concerning. Maybe you could explain it to me a little better, that we're going to authorize any over budget development charges. I just wondered if you could touch on that, and then I have a supplement about the landfill reserve after.
Question, Deputy Mayor, Director Drusevich will.
Through the chair. So annually, as part of the budgeting process, development services, as well as the CAO and treasurer, work together to try and predict what the impact of waivers is going to be on the town's budget. It's not an easy exercise because there's many factors that could speed up development and there's many factors that could delay development. So for this reason, often, and again, the budget is exactly that. It's a budget. It's an estimate of what's going to happen. So we've noted in some years we have budget savings and in some years we have budget overages. So what we've developed here is a financing plan. And this is really done to have a minimal impact on the taxpayer. So if we attempted to try and fund it in year with the amount of waivers that we have in place, we'd be realizing some pretty exorbitant tax increases. So we do have an internal reserve that we use for funding of exactly things of this nature, unexpected, and that would be the recommended course to fund these overages. And again, the whole intent behind it is to stabilize tax increases. So what our thought process is behind it is that once taxation revenue is realized from the development, we would then repay the reserve. right now we're not realizing the tax revenue from that development.
And just to any members of the public that are watching, council did have a special council meeting at 5 o'clock tonight. The meeting will not be probably uploaded on YouTube yet. But if you have any questions, our manager of planning, Rita Jabora, brought us through. So you can, in 24 hours, you can go and watch that and you can see all the details. Any further questions or comments from council? Okay, seeing none, all in favor of this? Oh, hi, Brian. Did you, okay, go ahead.
Hi, council. Just a little bit of clarity on the recommended resolution that was read. Discussion at the special meeting of council took place previously, so I just thought condition 2 could be clarified, as well as consideration of condition 4 about the restrictive covenants could be clarified, or even considered as council was discussing previously, with phase 1 not having any restrictive covenants, and that the municipal drain maintenance is on the east side of the Philip Ferris drain, not the west where the subdivision lies. Thanks.
For your questions, Brian. So does, do our directors or our manager have any further comment towards Brian? Okay. Thank you. Members of council in favor? That's carried unanimously. Okay, planning 2023-02, removal of the holding age zone restriction and release of the performance securities for phase 1 of the Greenleaf Trail residential subdivision. Recommended actions: that planning report entitled removal holding age zone be received, and that the commercial letter of credit from Delabona Estates Inc. be reduced by $147,000. That council authorize any over budget amount for development charges to be waived through the landfill reserve and repaid at a period no longer than 5 years from the date of the building permit issuance, and that bylaw 2214 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 1037, the comprehensive zoning bylaw for the town of Essex, be read a first, second, third time, and finally passed on January 16th. Needing a mover for this. Councillor Mady and Councillor Verbeek. Any questions from council? Pretty straightforward. Seeing none, all in favor? It's carried unanimously. Infrastructure services, protection of highways bylaw. Recommended action: that infrastructure services report 2023 be received, and that the bylaw 2219 being a bylaw to provide for the protection and regulations of town highways, road allowances, and right-of-ways in the town of Essex be read a first, second, and provisionally adopted on January 16th. Needing a mover for this. Councillor McGuire Blaze. Councillor Verbeek, and we will go to Director Gerard.
Through the mayor, thank you. The proposed bylaw before you is proposed to repeal the existing bylaw 135. The intent of the proposed bylaw is to formalize process, update current standards, and to generalize permitting processes and obligations for permitting. The existing bylaw is very specific to driveway permits, whereas the town now has permits for driveways, third-party utilities such as gas and fiber internet, road occupancy, and property servicing. Therefore, there's a need to clean up the language to include generality for different types of permits, to regulate prohibited activities within the town right-of-way, and to identify enforcement measures. In addition, the town does not have a care and use bylaw, but it needs one. Part 5 of the proposed bylaw provides for that. This section identifies the care and use section, which designates a property owner's obligations to cut the boulevard in front of their house, the grass of the boulevard in front of their house, and that the driveways within the town property need to be in a good state of repair to protect the town against future liability concerns. In addition, in 2022, the previous council had directed administration to look at the feasibility of allowing landscaping within the town's property. When conducting research on this, most municipalities of similar size and resources have bylaws that restrict any landscaping within the town's right-of-way. Knowing that every situation may be different, administration is not proposing that a simple restriction in the bylaw is warranted, and that under this new bylaw would permit applicants to apply for landscaping within their property. Understanding that, typically the town, if it has plans for future replacement or future installation of infrastructure, that landscaping would not be permitted within the right of way. However, there are instances where the right of way could never be used for that purpose, and could be permitted for landscaping. So we are proposing under this bylaw to treat every situation uniquely and to provide opportunity for residents or property owners to apply through the permitting process for landscaping within the town right away. And I'll pass it back to the council. Thank you.
Chair Gerard, any comments from councilors? I see Councilor McGuire Blaze.
Thank you, through the chair. Currently, can a resident do landscaping on a boulevard or on the town right of way?
Bylaw 135 does not allow for any landscaping within the town's property.
Thank you, through the chair. So right now, no one is allowed to do it. If they do it, because they don't know that there's a bylaw and they're not allowed to do it, and we need to put infrastructure in that area, what do we do?
Through the mayor, if it's for a capital project, we would actually identify through communication of that capital project that any landscaping within the town's right of way will be removed. If it's not removed already by the residents. So that communication that goes out, let's say the town were to conduct some kind of underground capital project, a sewer, a water main, something like that. A letter would go out to those residents in advance of the construction. We would notify residents that if there is landscaping, boulders, rocks, anything owned privately by those landowners, that they need to be removed from the right of way. If the project, and then it's also identified in that letter that if by the time the project is started, that stuff is not removed, that the town will remove on their behalf.
Thank you, through the chair. And is there a fine? Is the resident charged for the town to remove the landscaping?
Through the mayor, as part of a capital project, we don't currently fine residents or charge them for the removal of that landscaping, and that's essentially at the discretion of it doesn't cost the town any money essentially to remove minor landscaping through our contractor. The contractor would just remove it at their own discretion and dispose of it as they wish.
I have Councilor Mady, then Councilor Allard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Right now, there's no permitting process at all to allow somebody to have any landscaping on the town right of way.
No, typically we do not permit landscaping within the town's right of way at all. Through the bylaw, it would permit them to apply for landscaping, let's say, but typically the practice has been that we would not permit that landscaping to occur within the town's property if it would have any impact on the town's property at all. Whereas the current bylaw, we would use that bylaw to review the landscaping proposed and identify whether or not it would impact future infrastructure.
Madam Mayor, I must miss. So right now they can ask for a permit, but it's typically not granted. Under the new one, they could ask for a permit, but it says there that's typically not going to be granted. So.
As I mentioned, there are times where the right of way may not be used for infrastructure. So we are proposing under this bylaw to treat every situation on a case by case basis. So if somebody is requesting to put landscaping within the town's right of way, we would review it to determine if there were any impacts to future potential infrastructure improvements. If there is that potential for impact, we would not be able to grant that landscaping within the right of way. However, if the potential does not exist, then we could potentially allow that landscaping to happen within the town's right of way.
Thank you, and to you, Madam Mayor. Okay, so I'm still hearing that there's not much that's changed for landscaping between the old bylaw and the new bylaw. So the second thing is, when I asked for the bylaw, best practices, I was looking for a much more objective set of criteria. What could and could not be allowed. People could still be coming to the town wanting a permit to plant a tree 6 inches off the road right now, without knowing that that's never going to be allowed. Any way to get a more subjective approach to this? Leaving it totally objective is going to present a lot of bad optics when one person gets to decide on the day if they like that or if they don't like that. I just want to see an objective set of bylaws here.
Director Gerard?
So in completing this bylaw, which was, we needed this before even the conversation about the landscaping occurred. But I understand what you're saying. When we did our research and we looked at other municipalities of similar size and resources, it was a very similar approach, that nothing would be permitted within the town's right of way. And when we discussed this with our internal infrastructure team and our bylaw team, there are concerns about the enforceability of providing any type of landscaping to some threshold within the municipal right of way, right? So let's say we were to permit, shrubs no taller than a certain height, for instance. It's very difficult to enforce that. It's very difficult to monitor that, those types of things. So, the recommendation to council is that we don't permit the landscaping to occur within the right of way unless there's no potential for any future improvements, right? So that was what our research told us. That is what we looked at. Other municipalities that did have something similar to what you're saying, like a best practice for landscaping within the right of way, were typically larger cities with large bylaw enforcement and much more resources in terms of money and staff. We're very limited in terms of staff and money. We're very reactive when it comes to enforcing these types of bylaws. So creating something that would be more in line with a municipality of our size was what we decided to recommend to council.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Mayor. So if the care and use part, if a resident wanted to have a rock garden for most of their front lawn, never bought a lawnmower, doesn't have any grass in their property, and now we're going to tell them that they have to leave that section as grass. Are we going to force them to go buy a lawnmower and take care of that, or what's our plan for that?
Through the mayor, the bylaw that is proposed would not permit like a rock garden to be placed without permit, first of all. Secondly, so that would be one of those case by case situations where we would have to determine whether or not that rock garden is going to impact future infrastructure, if it's going to be in accordance with the bylaw. I would say that the expectation that is, if it does conflict, is that it would need to be grass and it would need to be maintained in accordance with the care and use portion of this bylaw.
We'll go to Councillor Allard. We'll go around and then Deputy Mayor Shepley.
The mayor. Okay, so if I understand it, we have a current bylaw that does not permit anything on public right of way. And the new bylaw will basically be the same, with exceptions to some properties that may never have future things going on in the future that would be impacted. And this bylaw will likely have more teeth than the current bylaw has. Am I getting this correct? Okay, so even though right now you can't, under a current bylaw, you can't get a permit, and even though you're going to need a permit and may still not get one on the new bylaw, it's not stopping people from still doing it, because people are doing it. Matter of fact, people are doing it, and when we put a sidewalk in and their irrigation system gets hit and their sprinkler head gets hit, that contractor is replacing that sprinkler head right now. So we know about it and we're still fixing it. So I'm not sure why the new bylaw, what the new bylaw is going to do to change that. Except for maybe the teeth part where it's like, well, you now know that you're not supposed to have it, even if you already have it in place. So I'm kind of getting all that now. But at the end of the day, even now, if I think I may have something on town-owned property and something's going to be coming in that's going to disrupt that, it's on me and my cost to remove it and comply, correct? And further than that, so then where's the problem? I mean, if that is the case for everybody now, then where's the problem? We all know we're not allowed to do it. We do it, but if something comes up, you now have to remove it, and if you don't, then we remove it, and I imagine it goes back under taxes, like it would if you don't cut your lawn, and we give you and we serve you, so same thing. So why could we not still permit under those acknowledgements that up the road, if something has to go through there, it's on you to replace it? As long as it meets, I think where Councilor Meady's going, as long as it meets certain standards, like not so high, not a tree that's going to be greater in trunk width and height than, I mean, is that something we could just do instead of reinventing the whole wheel?
Director Gerard, did you want to comment?
So we need to be very cautious about how much we pollute the town's right of way with other things, right? So like, I'm not just saying with landscaping, but you bring up sprinklers, for instance. When we start getting into these things, they could potentially cost us more money if there's more of them, right? So if there's one landscaping rock to get rid of, the contractor's not charging us for that. But if they go down a road and they see that there's sprinkler systems in everywhere all over the road, there's trees that they have to work around, there's landscaping that they need to work around, that's going to cost the municipality more money to remove those things to work around them. In addition, there are services that go in the ground that are not owned by the municipality. Gas, fiber, internet, telephone, those are hydro. Those are all things that have to work around those services. Well, and everybody wants a meter separation between all of their stuff. So if I say that there's, 7 or 8 utilities within a road allowance, I mean, it's very difficult to fit it in the 20-meter road allowance that we have without putting everything under the road, which again costs the municipality more money. So I would be very cautious as to what we permit within the right of way. It could cost us more money. It also affords an opportunity for more bylaw infractions, more communication with residents, and more arguments about what is allowed and what isn't allowed within that right of way prior to having to actually remedy that, right? Also, most of these complaints are generated from the public or from the neighborhood. So I would be very cautious as to also how much time that's going to take for our bylaw department to try and enforce a lot of these landscaping things or a lot of things that people may believe belong in that right of way or not. So it could have a staffing impact on us as well to go beyond what's there.
So through the mayor, follow up on that then. The other issue is a resident doesn't necessarily know exactly where their property ends and where town property begins. So, and my understanding is if they ever did come to the building department and ask for a clarification on it, we wouldn't be able to give them that information either, would we?
Actually, we can provide approximate locations in the field with a simple site visit. We can verify if there are property bars within the ground. We can identify where the property limits of a property are. That's only if the bars still exist. But we do offer those services now. So when a resident wants to know where the property line is, somebody from infrastructure services will actually visit the site and identify that. I believe building services also does the same thing if there's some type of question or of where the property line may be. So we can provide both approximate and in certain circumstances, more exact locations. It's typically how we determine, tree ownership, who owns a tree, if it's the municipality or if it's the private property. things like that. So we do have means to identify where that property line.
Mayor, just to clarify, but that's just basically for, that's not private property to private property. That's private property to town property, right?
Through the mayor, that's correct. We typically would not enter private property. That would need to be done by a surveyor.
Shepley?
I think Joe got a couple of the questions I was asking. So currently they're not allowed to do it at all, period. They're doing it, but they're not supposed to do it. There's no permit procedure for them to go ahead and have that. This provides an avenue for people to have some sort, if they fall within the requirements to possibly have it done. And that request would come to the director, Gerard, I would assume. And then would you have final say on that, or would we then be seeing them in front of council if they didn't like your answer? I guess my question.
So I don't personally manage the permits within the municipality, but my team does. These are permits obviously for the right of way. So in instances where things may be in question, I do get involved with permits, or if there's a very unique situation. But however, it is managed by my team. To answer your question, anything's possible. I mean, residents can end up in this council chambers for any reason with any reasonable request to appear as a delegate in front of council. So with that being said, yeah, you could end up with residents in these chambers.
Councillor Allard?
Just kind of follow up on Deputy Mayor Shepley's question. The previous council gave administration direction for us. We're looking at an appeals committee. So there's a number of bylaws, basically council in here, you're to set the policy, right? We don't want people coming back for exemptions. So we're report will be coming back from our clerk's department this first quarter on developing an appeals committee. And we're going through what bylaws would that appeals committee oversee. And I could see this potentially could be one, there's trees and all that. So that is coming down the line to avoid always coming to council for exemptions. We're looking for a process to be put in place.
Deputy Mayor?
Just one last thing, just the fact that they have the option now and they didn't before, I think this is a great idea and I support it.
Comments from council members? Oh, sorry, Councillor Allard.
Through the mayor, through to Kevin, Director Gerard, sorry. The clearances, there's a marker on everybody's property that you can determine where has everybody got it?
That's what I was mentioning about property bars. So there are property bars typically placed at the time of lot creation by an Ontario land surveyor. Over time, those bars get removed from people doing landscaping or constructing driveways or what have you, anything truly. So there are instances out there where the lot property bars can't be found. The only way to identify it without a lot property bar is to hire a land surveyor to replace those bars. So in most circumstances, we can find property bars. In older communities, it's a little bit more difficult.
Mayor, I remember when I bought my first house, it was mandatory that you had a survey done in your property so that you knew exactly where. And for some reason, it stopped right after that. And every tenant that I had move in beside me, there was a problem regarding their property lines. Just saying, it might not be a bad idea to go back that way.
You, Madam Mayor. So first, my comment, if we have the chance for an appeals committee to be coming forward, maybe we're kind of jumping the gun on this. We should set that up first before we look at changing our bylaw. Second, though, the road allowance versus roadway. Out in Ward 3, we have a real problem with this. Our improved roadways, everybody knows where they're at. Our road allowance now, when it goes to that much wider 60+ foot section, that goes through people's living rooms. That goes through people's garages. That goes through people's finished driveways. So saying that we have to abide by this road allowance is really weird, I guess I would say, for anybody living in Ward 3. We know these road allowances don't mean much out our way. And then we have roads that don't follow the center of these road allowances. So we'll have a road that's over on what, close to one property set and 40+ feet of road allowance in somebody else's. I really don't see how in Ward 3 we can use road allowance as any kind of guidance for where we should be doing anything.
Good, healthy discussion. That was a good comment there. We have a motion on the table right now. So looking to see, I see a lot of funny faces in the room. I'm Councillor Guerin.
To the mayor. So it's a first and second time. It'll still come back for a third time, but be provisionally adopted as of today. I'm reading this right? So, and so we could adopt it provisionally and still make any change we want prior to a third reading. Is that correct?
I don't believe you've spoke yet.
Madam Mayor, because I've been just trying to listen. So I guess my question is, it's pretty clear that there's a number of us here that aren't, if I'm reading the room right and listening to a couple of my fellow councillors, some of us aren't exactly prepared to, adopt this as it is. And so as Councillor Guerin pointed out, this is only the first and second. So I guess I'd like direction from administration. Is it better that we just like defer it as it is, or do we adopt the first and second with still there's going to be an expectation that there's some tweaking done, if I'm hearing my fellow councillors correctly? So what is the best step next, to just defer this, or to adopt it provisionally with the expectation that we look at it some more?
Either Ms. Brown or clerk. Thank you.
Madam Mayor. So essentially, it's the same thing. If you give it 2 readings and you provisionally adopt it, there's that you've got the time in between here that I would reach out to council or to Director Gerard to make those changes. And then when it comes back, we can highlight those changes for you. Deferring it again, if you do defer it, you're delaying it, because if you defer it, when it comes back, you're going to give it 2 readings and then it's going to come back again right after that. So that's the difference there.
Thank you. Follow up. So I'm going to guess by deferring it, it's going to buy us a little more time, closer to the time that we're getting closer to having this appeals board put into place.
Mayor Bondi, we're not sure when that timeline for the appeals will come back, so I wouldn't rely on that. My recommendation would be that you move the recommendation for 2 readings tonight, but then you also provide feedback to Director Gerard and his team. We don't want to come back to the next meeting with not knowing what you want. That way you can give him some direction to look at items that are of your concern. And if that time he comes back, could be next meeting or a future meeting, or it may be defer even longer for that 3rd reading. But it leaves, keeps the process moving, but allows you the opportunity to provide more feedback to the infrastructure department.
I'm not sure if you want it coming back in March, because Director Gerard is off. Or, okay, all right. Oh, okay. Councillor, we'll have one more council speak to the motion, then we'll call the question. Councillor Mady.
So if we want to change it, if we read it for the first and second tonight and adopt it provisionally, and we want to make changes to it, what does that process look like?
So I will try my best. If you want just a different, say you want a line item in there, like, to individually look at road allowances and wards free. I don't know. That's where you need to negotiate. If you have suggestions, you meet with staff, our director, our CAO, and if we can't pull it off by the next meeting, we do have the option at the next meeting to do what we did with our greenhouse light bylaw that we did tonight. It's a work in progress. It's a brand new item. So Director Gerard?
I agree with CAO Sweet. I believe that adopting it provisionally tonight is a good move. There are many aspects to this bylaw, not just the landscaping portion of that bylaw. For instance, the formalizing of the permitting process is imperative. We need to continue moving forward with this. We're at a time where fiber internet has never been greater in the town of Essex. So the landscaping piece is only one small portion of that. And to just, build on it, what I would recommend is we can bring this bylaw as proposed to the February 6th meeting for a third and final reading. But over that period of time between now and then, I will gather all of the feedback from council, not just counselors, but if counselors want to send me their, concerns or proposed changes that they would like to see as part of that bylaw, I can compile all those comments together as a group to see what the best changes to make in that bylaw are and bring proposed changes to you at the February 6th meeting.
The landscaping portion is such a small portion of this, then can I ask for it to be removed? And we could adopt it without the landscaping portion for the first and second time tonight, read for the first and second time and adopt it provisionally?
A friendly amendment, I believe, but I'll go to Director Gerard.
Through the mayor, I believe that section, the wording is pretty fundamental to the overall bylaw. Again, I'll take that feedback from everybody and I can make proposed changes and we can have another discussion at February 6th if those proposed changes are not what you're feeling are, the appetite of council. And in the meantime, I'll also look at, some other, I'll discuss it, brainstorm with my team on some other proposed best practices.
I do want to call the question because we could go on all night. So Councilor Mady, this is the last one.
Let's speak at least one more time, Madam Mayor. I agree. The landscaping is a fundamental part of it. This bylaw is huge. And I love the fact that we're moving towards it. But I feel we need a lot more time to talk about it, discuss our ideas. I would even like to have a special council meeting on just this bylaw. I would ask for it to be deferred until we're all comfortable with it. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Ms. Brown?
CEO Sweet, sorry, through Madam Mayor, CEO Sweet had alluded to this. Once you give this to first and second reading, provisionally adopt it, there's nothing that says it has to come back at the exact next meeting. I think like CEO Sweet said, we can bring it back in the next 2 meetings to give you more time. It doesn't have to be, and should it be brought back at the next meeting, you could choose to defer like the mayor had suggested.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, so we should, I think, was there a motion on the floor? Okay, so I'm in support of the motion, but yes, for sure. I think this gives us an opportunity. I think it's enough opportunity to talk to our constituents that may be affected by this. I think administration has the temperature of the room and understands kind of where we're going with this. But we need to be a little more clear on if we're talking February 6th, it's only 3 weeks. I'm not sure how much time administration needs to prepare this, like get all the feedback from us, a deadline on that, and still prepared. Is 3 weeks really gonna be enough? If we were to say we have 2 weeks to get you the information, does 1 week allow you enough to prepare for a February 6th report?
We will leave that with our administration in their their direction, whatever. It's all up to us to provide them feedback. And if you want to provide them feedback, you do it in a timely fashion, or then it's coming back. Okay, I'm going to call the question. All in favor of yes. Okay, recorded vote. Ms. Brown, all in favor of this motion, and we will have a recorded vote on this. Is that infrastructure services report be received and that bylaw 2219 being a bylaw to provide for the protection and regulation of highways be read a first and a second time, and it will come back after we have provided our feedback to administration.
Madam Mayor, agenda item 10.8, infrastructure services 2023, as Councillor Mady has requested a recorded vote. Councillor McGuire Blaze, how do you vote?
Favor.
Councillor McGuire Blaze supports. Councillor Allard, how do you vote?
Opposed?
Councillor Verbeek, how do you vote? Verbeek and Councillor Allard have opposed. Deputy Mayor Shepley, how do you vote? Supports. Mayor Bondi, how do you support? The Mayor Bondi supports. Councillor Hammond, how do you vote? Councillor Hammond supports. Councillor Guerin, how do you vote?
Support.
Councillor Guerin supports. Councillor Mady, how do you vote? The recorded vote of 5 in favor and 3 opposed, the motion carries.
That one again, and we can cross-reference it and pick it apart. And infrastructure services 2022-03 miscellaneous fees and charges. Recommended actions that infrastructure services report 2022-03 be received and that council direct administration to incorporate fees and charges as described with this report into Schedule A of bylaw 2040, being a bylaw to establish a schedule of miscellaneous fees and charges. Councillor Guerin and Councillor McGuire Blaze, any questions on this report from members of council? Councillor Guerin?
Just one. I think I've asked this question before, but just on this report, for example, hazard trees and branches, 20 complaints. We don't know if they're 20 unique complaints or if they're 20 complaints about 2 properties, right? Like, do we weed them out?
Step ahead of us. Questions to the miscellaneous, he wants to go home. No, any questions to the miscellaneous fees and charges report? Okay, seeing none, all in favor of that report, that's carried unanimously, I think. Communications report 2023, report a problem update on the 4th quarter. Looking for a mover and a seconder that the communications report be received. Councillor McGuire Blaze and Councillor Mady and Councillor Guerin, you could state your question again.
Through the mayor. So do we weed them out, or do we know if there is greater than, if the complaints are one of the same?
Mayor Bondi, Councilor Guerin's correct. We were asked to look into this before. With the current software, it is a challenge. So our staff are looking at how we can drill down. One of the things that in their forecast will be some new software, so we can be able to do that in the future. But with the current software, we're not able to.
Further questions from members of council? Seeing none, all in favor of receiving this report? Carried unanimously. Parks and facilities, grant funding and additional fees for Heritage Garden Park washrooms, that the facilities report be received, that council received for information. The town of Essex was awarded a grant from My Main Street Community Activator, and that council approve additional expenses of $15,000 for unforeseen evacuation and land work be funded by the grant. And that council approved the remaining 13,000 of funding to be applied to the total project cost rather than using the Parks and Recreation General Reserve monies. Looking for a mover for this, Councillor Allard, Councillor Mady. Any questions to administration? Oh, sorry, we're going to go right to our Director Morrissey.
Mayor Bondi, and through you to the rest of council. So I know council's been feeling a little bit of the heat from administration, asking for additional funds for projects lately. So I'm happy to be here tonight saying we received a grant. As part of that grant, though, there are a couple things that I do want council to know about. So the original project did come in over budget because of inflationary costs from the initial project amount that was put forward. So from there, the previous council did approve that project to go ahead, and we did so. So during the excavation portion of that project, there were large foundations that were found underground that couldn't have been predicted at that time. So with that being said, putting the water line to where it had to go had severe obstructions along the way. So those obstructions had to be removed and cut around and for the water line to essentially go there. So during that phase of the project, there was an additional $15,133 that was incurred for those costs. So we did receive the grant from My Main Street Community Activator Program for $28,646, which goes toward that cost. Now, the initial cost that council approved for the project to continue came from the Parks and Rec General Reserve. So the surplus money from that grant will go back into that reserve to fund that reserve. So essentially what's happening is we will see a net increase or a net savings of $13,513 to the taxpayers through this grant program.
Exciting. Any comments from council? Councillor Guerin.
Through the mayor, curiosity, when we get situations where there's unforeseen things like that on tenders, do they give us a quote and then that a company that we award the job and then we say, go ahead and do it? Or do they just, is it time and material into the contract?
So it is time and material. We did through this process verify that timesheets and material drop-offs were in accordance with what was done. So there was a verification process to ensure that the monies did line up for what they were requesting. In addition to that, going forward, I know there are some additional projects, as you'll see through the budget walkthrough on Wednesday, additional project that we are looking at doing at that site. So because of the foundations that were found there, administration did proceed with doing an underground radar survey so that we know where the infrastructure is and where we're going to be able to place that. So hopefully we can avoid overages for something like this going forward.
Any further comments from members of council? Councillor Mady.
To you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for going out and getting the grants and you ran into a problem. Grant money covered it. We don't have to give any extra money. I think it's wonderful. Thank you very much.
Well, I will be honest, it was Nelson Silvero, the manager of economic development. He changed his title recently. So manager of economic development that was seeking after this one. So I do have to, as much as I'd love to take the credit, I do have to give him credit for that.
We get a sticker wall in my mayor's office for all the staff members that bring us grants. So we'll see at the end of the year. Deputy Mayor Shepley.
Or through the mayor, one question. It kind of, I don't know if I should ask it, but I'm just curious. Like I was told during the Santa's Village that those washrooms weren't insulated. Is that the case? I'm just curious, because just as I saw this one without I'd have a chance to ask a question.
That's correct. There would have been significantly more cost to add a gas line in there and to be able to service it through the winter season. We are exploring some different options so that there could potentially be availability to use those washrooms, temperature dependent. Maybe we can get some heaters in there or do something, but it really will depend on the external temperatures during that season. to be able to see what we're going to do in those situations. So the intent was not necessarily to have it during the winter season. That's a great event that we're happy to have and continue, but the intent was more so for the summer season, during those, the event season, essentially.
Believe like any of our parks bathrooms are really winterized for the winter, so that would be nice, so then we wouldn't have to open them again, but that's a level of service. So seeing no further questions, going to ask the question, all in favor? Thank you, that's carried unanimously. There are no reports from youth members. County Council update to our Deputy Mayor.
Much to speak about other than we are actively looking for a CAO, and Mary Birch is currently in that position. Did I say something else? Oh, and just a side note, the library did select their chair, which was Joe Bichetti, and their vice chair, it's their very own Mayor Bondi. And that's it for the county report.
Deputy Mayor, yes, the library board had their first meeting, and it's a revamped board, so I think we'll see an improvement in services across the county with the new library board. Motion to receive the minutes of the regular county council meeting, supported by Councillor McGuire Blaze, Councillor Mady. Any questions? All in favor? That's carried unanimously. On to correspondence. Correspondence to be received in agenda item 13.1. So we will receive them all, and then if council members want to pull out any for comment, we can do that. Motion to receive them all. Deputy Mayor Shepley and Councillor Allard. I do have a note here that our Director Drusevich would like to speak on 13.1.3 from the Ministry of Finance. Kate, thank you.
Through the chair. So some good news for taxpayers in this release. The education has released their proposed tax increase, and it is at 0%. So we'll discuss more at the walkthrough on Wednesday, but education is at 0%.
For that, any members of council want to pull out any of these items to speak to? Okay, seeing none, all in, Councillor Mady.
Madam Mayor, the drinking water system in Harrow and Colchester South, I just wanted to say that I read that report and it came back stunning. Good job, guys. Thank you.
For that, Councillor Mady. Any further questions? Okay, all in favor? Receiving those correspondence. Okay, that is carried unanimously. Correspondence to be considered for receiving support. The Windsor and Essex County Crime Stoppers Incorporated, looking for a mover. Councillor Verbeek and Deputy Mayor Shepley. And I'll move to our clerk, Ms. Brown.
Madam Mayor, that the correspondence from the Windsor Essex County Crime Stoppers Incorporated be received and supported, sir. That council proclaim the month of January as Crime Stoppers Month in the town of Essex by adopting the following resolution. Whereas Crime Stoppers Month promotes awareness through education, campaigns, and events across Windsor and Essex County, and whereas this year's theme for Crime Stoppers Month is Stand Up, Stand Together, and whereas the foundation of Crime Stoppers is the partnership between the community, law enforcement, partnering agencies, and the media, and whereas Crime Stoppers encourages everyone to stand up and stand together to assist law enforcement, solve crime, and increase awareness and understanding of the Crime Stoppers program, whereby promoting the usage of the 24-hour reporting service to reduce and solve crime. And whereas Windsor and Essex County Crime Stoppers actively works with members of the community, the media, and police as a community safety service partner.
Therefore, I, Sherry Bondi, Mayor of the town of Essex, do hereby proclaim January 2023 as Crime Stoppers Month to support Windsor and Essex County Crime Stoppers Incorporated in promoting public awareness on their service within the community. Okay, any questions on that? Seeing none, all in favor? Okay, that is carried unanimously. Committee meeting minutes. Looking for a mover and a seconder for the committee meeting minutes listed in item 14, which is only the December 12th striking committee minutes. Looking for a mover. Is that a hand up, Councillor Hammond? Well, you can move it. Moved by Councillor Hammond, supported by Councillor Verbeek. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? We have nothing under financial tonight. We do have new business, so I will put it over to Councillor Verbeek for her motion. Councillor Verbeek's motion is there. Okay, Councillor Mady. What's your motion?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. I think it pretty much speaks for itself, but the reason that we're kind of bumping it up, I've requested that it be bumped up tonight is because, actually, you know what? I'll go back. I'll read the motion. The council direct administration to send a letter to provincial government requesting that residents be allowed to claim drainage bills on their income tax. So this is pretty significant in Ward 2, specifically, not only Ward 2, but specifically because like we have all the drainage work, a lion's share of the drainage work done. So if, you know, someone initiates or instigates, request some work on a drain or a culvert or ask to have their ditch cleaned, then then there'll be like an engineer's report and all the cost sharing on whatever work is done on the drain. If you're a farmer, you can, you can write that off on your taxes. But if you're just a regular homeowner, you can't. And we have residents all the time in Ward 2 getting stung with all of a sudden with huge significant drainage bills. Whether this can come to pass or not, no idea, but at least we can write a letter requesting the government. The reason I asked for it to be bumped up is because 4 of us are attending Roma this week. So we'll have the opportunity to speak to members of government about this. So I'm just asking for support in writing a letter. Thank you.
I would like to add a friendly amendment that we send this to county council as well. Okay. Any other members of council want to speak to this? Okay, we'll go Deputy Mayor Shepley and then Councillor Mady.
I just want to say I think it's a fantastic idea and I hope that we can get some traction. It's a great idea for our residents.
You, Madam Mayor. Ward 3, I think we would have to battle for the right to the lion's share and drainage issues. When I heard this, I thought this is wonderful. What a great idea. I can't support it enough, and I hope it comes to fruition. The people are not allowed to opt out of these bills. This is tough times we're going to be going through, and I really hope that our upper levels of government see this and allow this to come to fruition. Thank you very much.
That we send it to Roma and AMO. Any further comments? Is that okay with the mover and the seconder? Yeah, I think it's a fabulous motion. It just makes sense during these challenging fiscal times. Okay, all in favor of this motion? Carried unanimously. Okay, we have no new notices of motion tonight. So we'll go to reports from council members. And I think I don't know. I think I'm going to go back this way because I don't remember which way I went. So we'll start with Councillor Mady and then we'll work our way around the room.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Nothing to report tonight.
Please.
You through the chair, nothing to report tonight.
Councillor Allard.
Chair, nothing to report. Thank you.
Councillor Verbeek.
Thanks, Madam Chair. So today I stepped outside my comfort zone and I made a Facebook post, and it's to point out to people the importance of doing the current survey that the town is offering right now, because we're doing a Parks and Rec master plan. There's an opportunity right now for our community to have input on this. So by going to essex.ca and doing this survey before the 30th of this month, you're going to have your voice heard for your visions of where the town is heading with this. And to be honest, as counselors and administration, if we can get all your ideas and your dreams into this plan, it makes it easier for us to bring them to fruition in the future, because this plan is going to be around for a long time. And if someone comes to us in 2 or 3 years and says, this would be a great place for a passive park, or this would, we need more equipment with this program or something, it's going to be a lot easier for us to try and find the finances and get it into the budget if we have this, if it's in the master plan, right? So go do the survey, It's important to all of us that we hear from you.
And I would like to give a shout out to our after hours crews that work on the weekends. We had a water main break in town, and on a Sunday afternoon, they were out 1 o'clock till probably, I think I went by at 8 o'clock and they were just wrapping things up. So just want to thank them for their work. Sometimes it goes unnoticed, and we really appreciate all that they do for us.
Counselor Garen? Counselor Hammond?
Something for Ward 3, actually. It's, they announced, today the, 2023, Colchester Shootout. They'll be taking registration, next month. It's, a summer fishing event that, brings a lot of good fishermen out to the village. So, you might want to look into that. Thank you.
Your reports. I also want to echo our deputy mayor's sentiments, and over the Christmas holidays, many of our staff were really busy too while we were all cozy at home eating turkey. So I appreciate all the calls we got. I know we got a lot because I got a lot, and I'm sure I don't get them. So moving on to bylaws, bylaw 2213 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the December 19th meeting. Looking for a mover on that, please. Deputy Mayor Shepley and Councillor Mady. Any questions to that? Seeing none, all in favor? Bylaw 2210 being a bylaw to prohibit and regulate fortification and protective elements of land. Looking for a mover on that. Councillor Garen. Supported by Councillor McGuire Blaze. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Oh, okay. Opposed? All right, that is carried. Do you want that noted? Okay. Bylaw 2207 being a bylaw to provide the issue of debentures to provide for the amount of $63,000 for works completed for drains be read a first, second, and third time passed today on January 16th. Looking for a mover? Councillor Hammond and first, yeah. What do you mean? Oh, these for this one. Which one? No, I'm on the debentures. Okay, we have Councillor Hammond. Looking for a seconder. Councillor Garen. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor. And bylaw 2220 being a bylaw for the declaration and disposition of surplus land, a portion of Hunter Park, 0 Bell Ave, by the Corporation of the Town of Essex, to be read in a first, second, and third time, finally passed on January 16th. Councillor Garen, Councillor McGuire Blaze, any questions to this bylaw? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried unanimously. Bylaws requiring a first and second reading, bylaw 2218, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the January 16th regular council meeting in the Corporation of the Town of Essex. Looking for Councillor Hammond and Councillor Mady. Any questions? No? Okay. All in favor? Carried unanimously. And I need a motion to, we have a few other meetings. Wednesday, January 18th, we're in our budget walkthrough all day. You can watch us on Zoom. So grab some snacks and watch us. And then we're back in a regular council meeting Monday, February. Okay, motion to adjourn. Deputy Mayor Shepley, Councillor Allard, any questions? Seeing none, all in favor. Have a good night, everybody, and thank you for tuning in. Spread the